Right. Hey, everyone. This is something a little bit special for the Coffee and UFO fans and all of you UAP and UFO geeks out there. Tonight, I'm actually going to read, start to finish, the AARO report that just was published last Friday. Now, I've read through it once before and I wanted to read through it again. So I thought I'll just do it now. And I was thinking, oftentimes when I'm really busy, it's nice to actually listen to these kinds of documents on the go podcast style. So this way I'll read it. And then if you're busy, you can just tune in. So I'll post this on the Coffee and UFOs podcast um, as well. All right. So I'm going to just jump right into it here. Now, originally I was going to do a post reading analysis, a little bit of commentary, but it's late and I have to get up early for work. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the report, and then tomorrow night I'll do a separate commentary and yeah, some criticisms on the report, which I may not resist commenting on tonight. But hey, Angel, oh my gosh, we got somebody in. Hey, all right. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to get started here. And let's go. All right. The Department of Defense All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office report on the historical record of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, Volume 1, February 2024. Now, I am going to skip the table of contents. Okay, Section 1, Introduction. This report represents Volume 1 and all of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office AARO Historical Report HR2, which reviews the record of the United States government USG pertaining to unidentified anomalous phenomena. In completing this report, AARO reviewed all official USG investigatory efforts since 1945, researched classified and unclassified archives, conducted approximately 30 interviews, and partnered with intelligence community and Department of Defense officials responsible for controlled and special access program oversight, respectively. AARO will publish Volume 2 in accordance with the date established in Section 6802 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023. Volume 2 will provide analysis of information acquired by AARO after the date of the publication of Volume 1. Since 1945, the USG has funded and supported UAP investigations with the goal of determining whether UAP represented a flight safety risk, technological leaps by competitor nations, or evidence of off world technology under intelligent control. These investigations were managed and implemented by a range of experts, scientists, academics, military, and intelligence officials under differing leaders, all of whom held their own perspectives that led them to particular conclusions on the origins of UAP. However, they all had in common the belief that UAP represented an unknown and therefore theoretically posed a potential threat of an indeterminate nature. AARO's mission is similar to that of these earlier organizations. AARO methodology applies both the scientific method and intelligence analysis tradecraft to identify and help mitigate risks UAP may pose to domain safety and to discover, characterize, and attribute potential competitor technological systems. A consistent theme in popular culture involves a particular persistent narrative that the USG or a secretive organization within it recovered several off world spacecraft and extraterrestrial biological remains, that it operates a program or programs to reverse engineer the recovered technology, and that it has conspired since the 1940s to keep this effort hidden from the United States Congress and the American public. Arrow recognizes that many people sincerely hold versions of these beliefs, which are based on their perception of past experiences, the experiences of others whom they trust, or media and online outlets they believe to be sources of credible and verifiable information. The Proliferation of television programs, books, movies, and the vast amount of internet and social media content centered on UAP related topics most likely has influenced the public conversation on this topic and reinforced these beliefs with some sections of the population. The goal of this report is not to prove or disprove any particular belief set, but rather to use a vigorous analytic and scientific approach to investigate past USG sponsored UAP investigation efforts and the claims made by interviewees that the USG and various contractors have recovered and are hiding off world technology and biological material. AARO has approached this subject with the widest possible aperture, thoroughly investigating these assertions and claims without any particular preconceived conclusion or hypothesis. AARO is committed to reaching conclusions based on empirical evidence. Lastly, AARO thanks all participants in this review who made this report possible, to include the interviewees who came forward with information. Section 2, Executive Summary. AARO found no evidence that the USG investigation, academic sponsored research, or official review panel has confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology. All investigative efforts at all levels of classification concluded that most sightings were ordinary objects and phenomena and the result of misidentification. Although not the focus of this report, it is worthwhile to note that all official foreign UAP investigatory efforts to date have reached the same general conclusions as USG investigations. Although many UAP reports remain unsolved or identified, AARO assesses that if more and better quality data were available, most of these cases also could be identified and resolved as ordinary objects of or phenomena. Sensors and visual observations are imperfect. The vast majority of cases lack actionable data, or the data available is limited or of poor quality. Resources and staffing for these programs largely have been irregular and sporadic, challenging the investigatory efforts and hindering effective knowledge transfer. The vast majority of reports almost certainly are the result of misidentification and a direct consequence of the lack of domain awareness. There is a direct correlation between the amount and quality of available information on a case with the ability to conclusively resolve it. AARO found no empirical evidence for claims that the USG and private companies have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. AARO determined, based on all information provided to date, that claims involving specific people, known locations, technological results, and documents allegedly involved in or related to the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology are inaccurate. Additional claims will be addressed in Volume 2. AARO successfully located the USG and industry programs, officials, companies, executives, and documents identified by interviewees. In many cases, the interviewees named authentic USG classified programs well known and understood to those appropriately accessed to them in the executive branch and legislative branch. However, the interviewees mistakenly associated these authentic USG programs with alien and extraterrestrial activity. AARO has reached the following high confidence conclusions related to. Go to the next page. Now keep your ears out for extraterrestrial versus non-human intelligence. Hey Andy. Hey Jing. Oh man, it's so great to see you guys. Thanks for popping in. All right, I'm going to keep rolling with this. UAP, Non-Disclosure Agreement NDA, AARO has found no evidence of any authentic UAP-related NDA or other evidence threatening death or violence for disclosing UAP information. A CIA officially allegedly managed UAP experimentation. The named former CIA official was not involved in the movement of extraterrestrial technology. The same former CIA officer signed a memo rejecting a claim made by interviewees that he managed the movement of an experimentation on off world technology. Alleged UAP intelligence community document. An alleged 1961 special national intelligence estimate that was, quote, leaked to online sources and suggests the extraterrestrial nature of, quote, UFOs is inauthentic. Aliens present during a DoD technology test. AARO reviewed information related to an account of an interviewee overhearing a conversation about a technology test at a military base where aliens allegedly were observing, and AARO judges that the interviewee misunderstood the conversation. Claim that a military officer touched an off world craft. An interviewee claimed that a named former military officer explained in detail how he physically touched an extraterrestrial spacecraft is inaccurate. The claim was denied on the record by the named former officer who recounted a story of when he touched an F 117 Nighthawk stealth fighter that could have been misconstrued by the interviewee, though the named former officer does not recall having this conversation with the interviewee. Test of off world technology. An interviewee claimed that he witnessed what he believed to be the testing of extraterrestrial technology at a USG facility, almost certainly was an observation of an authentic, non UAP related technology test that strongly correlated in time, location, and description provided in the interviewee's account. UAP disclosure study. Interviewees claimed that between 2004 and 2007, the White House requested a research institute in Virginia study the theoretical societal impacts of disclosing that UAP are extraterrestrial in origin. AARO confirmed the study was conducted, but it was not requested by the White House. Named companies allegedly experimenting on alien technology. AARO has no evidence that U.S. companies ever possessed off world technology. The executives, scientists, and chief technology officers of the companies named by interviewees met with director of AARO and denied on the record that they have ever recovered, possessed, or engaged in reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. Experimentation on alleged extraterrestrial spacecraft sample. AARO has concluded that a sample from an alleged crashed off world spacecraft that AARO acquired from a private UAP investigating organization and the U.S. Army is a manufactured terrestrial alloy and does not represent off world technology or possess any exceptional qualities. The sample is primarily composed of magnesium, zinc, and bismuth, with some other trace elements such as lead. This assessment was based on its materials characterization. AARO assesses that all of the named and described alleged hidden UAP reverse engineering programs provided by interviewees either do not exist, are misidentified authentic, highly sensitive national security programs that are not related to extraterrestrial technology exploitation, or resolve to an unwarranted and disestablished program. AARO created a secure process in partnership with the highest level security officials within the DoD, IC, and other organizations to research and investigate these programs. AARO was granted full, unrestricted access by all organizations. It is important to note that none of the interviewees had firsthand knowledge of these programs. They were not approved or for access to, nor did they work on these efforts, which they which likely resulted in misinterpretation of the program's origins and purpose. The interviewees and others who have mistakenly associated authentic sensitive national security programs with UAP had incomplete or unauthorized access to these programs. Discussion of these programs outside of secure facilities presents a high risk of exposing national security information. One named program was a UAP related prospective special access program, PSAP, called Kona Blue, that was proposed to the Department of Homeland Security and supported by individuals who believed the USG was hiding off world technology. The program was never approved by DHS, and its supporters never provided empirical evidence to support their claims. In 2021, without sufficient justification, The scope of an IC controlled access program was expanded to protect UAP reverse engineering. This program never recovered or reverse engineered any UAP or extraterrestrial spacecraft. This IC program was disestablished due to its lack of merit. AARO assesses that the inaccurate claim that the USG is reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology and is hiding it from Congress is, in large part, the result of circular reporting from a group of individuals who believe this to be the case despite the lack of any evidence. Arrow notes that although claims that the USG has recovered and hidden spacecraft date back to the 1940s and 1950s, more modern instances of these claims largely stem from a consistent group of individuals who have been involved in various UAP related endeavors since at least 2009. Many of these individuals were involved in or supportive of a canceled DIA program and the subsequent but failed attempt to reestablish this program under DHS called Kona Blue. AARO assesses that UAP sightings and reports of these sightings to USG organizations and claims that some UAP constitute extraterrestrial craft, and that the USG has secured and is experimenting on extraterrestrial technology have been influenced by a range of cultural, political, and technological factors. Arrow bases this conclusion on the following factors. The aggregate findings of all USG investigations to date have not found even one case of UAP representing off world technology. None of the programs mentioned by interviewees are UAP reverse engineering programs, and all the authentic programs have been properly notified and reported to Congress through the Congressional Defense and/or Intelligence Committees. Arrow has no evidence for the USG reverse engineering narrative provided by interviewees and has been able to disprove the majority of the interviewees' claims. Some claims are still under evaluation. Arrow determined that a piece of metal alleged to be recovered from an off world spacecraft is ordinary of terrestrial origin and possesses no exceptional qualities. Several factors, domestic and international, most likely influence sightings reports and the belief by some individuals that there is sufficient proof that some UAP represent extraterrestrial technology. Arrow's examination of the historical context of UAP investigations from 1945 to the present reveals that these factors, some common to and distinct between the earlier era of UAP investigations, pre 2009, and the modern era, post 2009, undoubtedly influenced the direction of these investigations. The volume of and spikes in sightings and the overall public interest, concern, and debate. These periods are divided into pre and post 2009 timeframe because this is the year of the stand up of the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, OSAP, and Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, efforts. Prior to OSAP ATIP, there was a 40-year gap in UAP investigation programs since the termination of Project Blue Book in 1969. Common contextual factors between earlier and modern investigations include a rapidly evolving and dynamic national security environment, concern about technological surprise, intense secrecy related to government military programs, public interest in UAP, perceived bureaucratic barriers, and the persistent lack of quality data. Some contextual factors that were distinct between earlier and modern investigations include differences in the level of public trust in the government, the large volume of popular culture content related to UAP, the perception within some segments of the population that the USG is hiding extraterrestrial technology, unauthorized disclosures of classified programs mistaken for UAP observations, the proliferation of online sources that reinforce these efforts, the impact that social media has had on circular reporting, and the rapid spread of misinformation. Tomorrow, I'll have a lot to say on misinformation. AARO assesses that some portion of sightings since the 1940s have represented misidentification of never before seen experimental and operational space, rocket, and air systems, including stealth technology and the proliferation of drone platforms. From the 1940s to the 1960s, especially, the United States witnessed a boom in experimental technologies. Many of these technologies fit the description of a stereotypical unidentified flying object UFO. It is understandable how observers unfamiliar with these programs could mistake sightings of these new technologies as something extraordinary, even otherworldly. Along with these conventional technology research areas, the USG started the Manhattan Project in 1942. This program operated in secrecy and led to the establishment of several, quote, secret cities across the United States to support the development of the nuclear bomb. Any misunderstanding stemming from the intense secrecy surrounding this and similar programs could have been misconstrued for other efforts. Section 3, Scope and Assumptions. Scope. This HR2 is provided by DoD in response to a requirement established in the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, for fiscal year 2023, Section 6802J, which states, quote, not later than 540 days after the date of the enactment of the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023. The director of the office shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees, the Congressional Intelligence Committees, and the congressional leadership a written report detailing the historical record of the United States government relating to unidentified anomalous phenomena. This report, pursuant to the legislation, is based upon the records and documents of the IC and DoD, oral history interviews, open source analysis, interviews of current and former government officials, and classified and unclassified archives. AARO will provide its findings to Congress in two volumes. Volume 1 contains AARO's findings from 1945 to 31 October 2023 based on requirements, and Volume 2 will include any findings resulting from interviews and research completed from November 2023 to 15 April 2024. AARO interviewed approximately 30 people who claimed to have insight into alleged USG involvement in off-world technology exploitation or to possess knowledge of UAP that have allegedly disrupted US nuclear facilities in the past. Assumptions. AARO and DoD assume that individuals convey their accurate recollection of their perception of the events they observed or heard. It is important to note that AARO cannot discount nor rely on interviewee accounts alone because of the extraordinary claims contained in their reports. Although individual accounts are important, they are only one element of the larger picture and provide AARO with the opportunity to initiate an investigation. However, any final assessment on the veracity of these accounts must be accompanied by provable facts. Some literature suggests individual accounts can be unreliable as they are subject to a person's interpretation of sensory data through the filter of their experiences, beliefs, or state of mind during the event. A person who reports a case might be credible in that they believe the element of their account to be accurate. However, their reliability, which is their ability to accurately interpret events, as well as to recall and convey those events due to a range of factors, is altogether different from their inherent sincerity. Similarly, confirmation bias is a recognized subconscious cognitive process whereby a person tends to seek and believe information that supports their hypothesis and to discount information that undermines their hypothesis. Hmm. Arrow remains open to additional verifiable information that may alter the conclusions rendered in Volume 1 and will note any changes to the findings in this report in Volume 2. Note on UAP nomenclature. Use of the UAP naming convention, while imperfect, is the best manner in which to characterize the multitude of unidentified reported sightings. Arrow understands that the use of, quote, UAP to refer to all potential possibilities provides a false sense of commonality, such as their origins, identity, purpose, type, and threat they may pose. The only commonality that they all share, at least initially, is that they are each unidentified. Beyond initially being unidentified or misidentified, drones, balloons, aircraft, rockets, rocket exhaust plumes, satellites, infrared aberrations, sensor artifacts, birds, stars, planets, indistinct lights, vague radar returns, meteors, and optical effects, such as parallax, have nothing in common. Congressional oversight. DoD is committed to providing timely and thorough reporting to Congress and to transparency with the American public. Since its establishment, AARO has endeavored to keep Congress fully and currently informed of its activities and findings at all levels of classification. AARO and DoD will continue to share the status and findings of its research at the appropriate level of classification with Congress. AARO's HR2 program of analysis. AARO established 6 complementary lines of effort, LOEs, to conduct the HR2 research with the goal of ensuring this report conveys an accurate and complete picture. LOEs were conducted in parallel and reinforced each other. A lead in one LOE drove new research and pursuits in another. AARO's goal was to conduct, so to make sure we're all on the same page here. LOEs were conducted in parallel and reinforced. A lead in one of LOE drove new research and pursuits in another. AARO's goal was to conduct thorough cross checks to vet all information to discover and close gaps in its understanding. These LOEs were to conduct open source research on claims through historical interviews about USG, investigations of contact with and recovery of UAP, as well as exploitation of alleged UAP material and technology. Conduct classified program research across the IC, DoD, and interagency to validate or invalidate any claims of classified programs derived from historical interviews. Conduct historical interviews of individuals who claim knowledge of alleged USG activities related to UAP. Partner with the U.S. National Archives on locating UAP data, refining requests based on the discovery of new leads derived from historical interviews, as well as open source and classified material. Engage with commercial entities on named companies alleged to have worked with the USG on UAP recovery and alleged exploitation of UAP technology. Partner with the archives of key intelligence and national security agencies, such as the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Department of Energy, DOE, National Security Agency, NSA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, the services, and DoD Combatant Commands. Section 4, Accounts of USG UAP investigatory programs since 1945. Okay, summary. AARO reviewed official USG efforts involving UFOs UAP since 1945. This research revealed the existence of approximately 24 separate investigative reports, depending on how they are counted. These efforts ranged from formal, distinct programs employing a dedicated staff with some measure of longevity, including Project Saucer, Sign, Grudge, and Blue Book, the DoD UAP Task Force, UAPTF, led by the U.S. Navy, the Airborne Object Identification Management Synchronization Group, AIMSOG, and the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO. There were also short-term projects that supported some of these established programs, including Projects Twinkle and Bear, and short-term inquiries into or reviews of specific cases, such as the USAF's 2 Roswell reports. Additionally, there were efforts that amounted to short-term outside reviews of United States Air Force established programs, such as the CIA-sponsored study group, the Robertson Panel, the Durant Report, and the University of Colorado's Condon Report, contracted by the United States Air Force. Some of these efforts, including Project Saucer and Sign, were closely connected and essentially the same organization. Project Grudge was the name given to 2 related but different organizations. The second, reorganized Project Grudge, was established about a year after the dissolution of the original Project Grudge. Project Saucer, 1946, 1947, January 1948. Background: the exact date of the founding of this first effort was, as well as its official and unofficial name, are unclear. According to one source, General Nathan Twining, commander of the Air Technical Services Command, established Project Saucer on December 30th, 1947, to collect and evaluate all information relating to UFO sightings, which could be construed as of concern to the national security. Captain Edward Ruppelt claimed the Project Saucer was the informal name of Project Sign, and it was designated a high priority. However, in an interview with an employee of Project Sign, the employee claimed the project started a year earlier in 1946 and that Project Saucer was its original informal name. A dearth of data and information is associated with this effort. And of course, there's footnotes throughout this report. Project Saucer investigated one of the first well known accounts provided by a private pilot, Kenneth Arnold. The pilot claimed that on June 23rd, 1947, while flying near Mount Rainier, Washington, he got the date wrong. He saw 9 large circular objects flying in a formation, objects that periodically flipped and were traveling at 1,700 miles per hour. He also compared the flight characteristics as the tail of a Chinese kite. Arnold described their shape as flying as saucer-like aircraft. His account was picked up by several media outlets and the term flying saucer emerged. Results: Project Saucer did not find evidence of extraterrestrial technology. Project Sign, January 1948, February 1949. Background: Project Saucer was formalized into an official high priority program named Project Sign. The Air Technical Intelligence Center, ATIC, assumed control of Project Sign on January 23rd, 1948. ATIC later became the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, NASIC. The impetus for this effort was to determine if these objects might be Soviet secret weapons or, quote, extraplanetary objects. The staff seemed confident that after a few months of work, they could reach a conclusion. As part of the work, the staff at Project Sign reviewed all of the military's intelligence on German weaponry and aeronautical capabilities to determine if some might have fallen into Soviet possession. Results: the project evaluated 243 reported UFO sightings, and in February 1949, it concluded that, quote, no definite and conclusive evidence is yet available that would prove or disprove the existence of these unidentified objects as real aircraft of unknown and unconventional configuration, end quote. Project Sign determined that nearly all were caused by either misinterpretation of known objects, hysteria, hallucination, or hoax. It also recommended continued military intelligence control over the investigation of all sightings. It did not rule out the possibility of extraterrestrial phenomena. Although the historical count is unsubstantiated and derived from only one source, Project Sign staff in late July 1948 allegedly drafted, signed, and sent a report, quote, estimate of the situation, up the military chain for approval. This report allegedly concluded the UFOs were interplanetary, quote, interplanetary in origin, but it was rejected by USAF Chief of Staff General Hoyt S. Vandenberg as lacking proof. This rejected report may have resulted in the Pentagon's leadership's loss of confidence in the staff at Project Sign, leading to the establishment of Project Grudge, which some sources claim possessed an institutional bias for debunking UFO claims. Page 15. Project Grudge, original organization, February through December 1949. Background: Project Sign was renamed Project Grudge in approximately February 1949. The staff event, especially those who seemed to lean towards belief in the interplanetary origin of UFOs, were reportedly purged from the organization. One account of this time period suggests that because of perceived pressure from the Pentagon's leadership, the remaining staff who held this view changed their minds. This same account claims that the Pentagon's goals for Project Grudge were to discount and explain away all reports of UFOs. Project Grudge was terminated on December 27th, 1949, around the time of a comprehensive report on its findings was published. The USAF did not stop collecting and analyzing reports of UFOs. Rather, it folded that work into its existing intelligence processes. Results. Project Grudge investigated 244 reports of UFO sightings, did not discover any evidence that the UAP sightings represented foreign technology. Therefore, these findings did not pose a threat to U.S. national security. The report recommended the organization be downsized and de emphasized because it was believed Project Grudge's very existence fueled a quote, war hysteria within the public. The United States Air Force subsequently implemented a public affairs campaign designed to persuade the public that UFOs constituted nothing unusual or extraordinary. The stated goal of this effort was to alleviate public anxiety. In August 1949, the United States Air Force asserted that the UFO reports were misinterpretations of natural phenomena, man made aircraft fabrications, or hoaxes. Project Twinkle, summer 1949 to summer 1950. Background. Project Twinkle was established in the summer of 1949 to investigate a series of UFO reports witnessed by numerous observers in Nevada and New Mexico. These UFOs were described as green fireballs streaking across the sky, moving in odd ways, and in at least one account, the fireball navigated near an aircraft. The literature is not clear if Project Twinkle was officially supported by the original Project Grudge, but it was managed by the United States Air Force's Cambridge Research Laboratory. The goal of this investigation was to use multiple high powered cameras near White Sands with the hope that if at least two images of the fireballs were captured, then their speed, altitude, and time could be discerned. Results. The project was only able to secure one camera, which was frequently moved between locations following fireball reports, and no photographs of the fireballs were ever taken. Project Grudge reestablishment, October 1951, March 1952. Okay, background. In late October 1951, almost 2 years after Project Grudge was disestablished, the United States Air Force's UFO mission was reorganized into another distinct program, also named Project Grudge, led by Captain Ruppelt. By his own account, Captain Ruppelt, did I get that right? Okay, yep. Captain Ruppelt sought to correct the mistakes of Project Sign and the former Project Grudge. His primary goal was to ensure that there would be no wild speculation, and that if his staff were, quote, too pro or too con, end quote, recording the off world origin of UFOs, they would be let go. He claimed to have fired 3 staff. He also realized that he needed a range of scientific expertise, which he sourced through a contract he dubbed Project Bear. Captain Ruppelt set a policy that was intended to foster objectivity. Unlike the previous Project Grudge, he allowed his staff to create an unknown category of cases, which he hoped would dissuade the forcing of a particular answer in any case. The new Project Grudge reviewed all of the previous cases in Project Sign, old Project Grudge, and from the Attic interim period. Results. The new Project Grudge noticed that there was some correlation between sightings and publication of UFO stories in the media. Captain Ruppelt noted that there were concentrations of cases in the Los Alamos, Albuquerque area, Oak Ridge, White Sands, Strategic Air Command locations, ports, and industrial sites. No evidence of extraterrestrial origin of UFO UAP were discovered. Project Bear, late 1951, late 1954. Background. Project Bear wasn't an informal name given by Captain Ruppelt, chief of Project Grudge, to a contract he created with the Battelle Memorial Institute, BMI, to provide scientific support to the new Project Grudge. BMI provided technical support, studied the reliability of interviewee information recall from UFO sightings, created an improved debriefing questionnaire for observers, and developed a computer punch card system. This system helped automate the statistical study of all UFO reports in Project Grudge's holdings and those in Project Blue Book. BMI released a report under the cover of Attic to maintain its anonymity. Completed in late 1954, the report was titled Special Report Number 14. Results. The Project Bear report was based on a statistical analysis of UFO sightings and contained graphs showing their frequency and distribution by time, date, location, shape, color, duration, azimuth, and elevation. It concluded that all cases that had enough data were resolved and readily explainable. The report assessed that if more data were available on cases marked unknown, most of those cases could be explained as well. It also concluded that it was highly improbable that any of these cases represented technology beyond their present day scientific knowledge. CIA Special Study Group, 1952. Background. After an increase in UFO sightings in 1952, particularly those that gained widespread attention over the Washington, D.C. area during that summer, CIA's Deputy Director for Intelligence, Robert Amory Jr., tasked the CIA Office of Scientific Intelligence, OSI, Physics and Electronics Division to review UFO cases. A. Ray Gordon took lead on this project, and the study group he established reviewed all of Attic's data from Project Sign through Grudge. Results. The study group assessed that 90% of the reports were explainable, and the other 10% amounted to, quote, incredible claims, but rejected the notion that they represented Soviet or extraterrestrial technology. The group also studied Soviet press and found no reports of UFOs, leading the group to assume that the Soviets were deliberately suppressing such reports. The study group also believed that the Soviets could use reports of UFOs to create hysteria in the United States or overload the US early warning system. In December 1952, H. Marshall Chadwell, Assistant Director of OSI, briefed the Director of Central Intelligence, Walter Bedell Smith, on the subject of UFOs. Chadwell urged action because he was convinced that something was going on that must have immediate attention, and that sightings of unexplained objects at great altitudes and traveling at high speeds in the vicinity of major U.S. defense installations are of such nature that they are not attributable to natural phenomena or known types of aerial vehicles. The source material does not suggest that Smith believed that these sightings were of extraterrestrial origin, only that he believed that they were not natural phenomena or known competitor technology. It is not clear from the source material why Chadwell seemed to hold a different review than that of the study group. It is possible that he suspected that UFO reports represented unknown Soviet technology and therefore posed a national security threat. His concerns about and interest in the topic led to the establishment of the Robertson Panel. The Robertson Panel, January 1953. Background. H. Marshall Chadwell clandestinely sponsored the establishment of a UFO scientific review panel led by California Institute of Technology's physicist H.P. Robertson. This action followed a recommendation from CIA's Intelligence Advisory Committee to enlist the services of selected, quote, scientists to review and appraise the available evidence in light of pertinent scientific theories, end quote. The panelists had expertise in a range of fields, including nuclear physics, high energy physics, radar, electronics, and geophysics. Results. The panel reviewed all USAF data and concluded that most reports had ordinary explanations. The panel unanimously concluded that there was no evidence of a direct threat to U.S. national security from UFOs or that they were of extraterrestrial origin. The panel was, however, concerned with the outbreak of mass hysteria and how the Soviets could exploit it. They recommended the USG use various channels to debunk UFO reports and suggested monitoring domestic UFO enthusiast organizations. The Robertson panel discussed the complete lack of the recovery of any hardware resulting from, quote, unexplained UFO sightings, end quote, which contributed to its assessment that the reported UFOs were neither a foreign threat nor of extraterrestrial origin. The Durant Report, February 1953. Background: CIA officer Frederick Durant drafted a report for CIA's Assistant Director of OSI on the Robertson panel's work and findings. Durant's memorandum provided a brief history of the panel and an unofficial supplement that provided comments and suggestions from members, which they had not included in the final report. Results: the report offered no distinct or separate findings of note and mostly summarized the findings of the Robertson panel. Project Blue Book, March 1952 to December 1969. Background: United States Air Force Director of Intelligence, Major General Charles P. Cabell, established Project Blue Book to study UFO phenomena. Based on at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base near Dayton, Ohio, Project Blue Book was the longest-running UFO UAP investigation. It was led successfully by Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, the former director of the reorganized Project Grudge, Captain Charles Hardin, Captain George T. Gregory, Lieutenant Colonel Roger J. Friend, and Lieutenant Colonel Hector Quintanilla Jr. The United States Air Force recorded 12,618 UFO sightings between the years 1947 to 1969. J. Allen Hynek served as its lead scientific investigator. Project Blue Book organized its cases into one of three categories: identified, insufficient data, and identified. For those reports that were categorized as identified, Project Blue Book staff used the following categorization schema: astronomical sightings. These consisted of bright stars, planets, comets, fireballs, meteors, auroral streamers, and other celestial bodies. When observed through haze, light, fog, moving clouds, or other obscurations or unusual conditions, the planets, including Venus, Jupiter, and Mars, were often reported as UFOs. Balloons. These included weather balloons, radiosondes, and large research balloons with diameters up to 300 feet, which together accounted for several thousand cases. Balloons were released daily from military and civilian airports, weather stations, and research activities. Reflection of the sun on balloons at dawn and sunset sometimes produced strange effects, which led to many UFO reports. Large balloons can move at speeds of over 100 miles per hour in high altitude wind streams. Aircraft. According to Project Blue Book, various aircraft accounted for another major source of UFO reports, particularly during adverse weather conditions. The staff noted that when observed at high altitudes and at a distance, the reflection of the sun on aircraft's surfaces can make them appear as disc or rocket shaped. Totally true. They also noted that vapor or condensation trails from jet aircraft will sometimes appear to glow fiery red or orange when reflecting sunlight. Afterburners. Bright afterburners flames from jet aircraft were often reported as UFOs since they could be seen from great distances when the aircraft was not visible. Other UFO resolutions included stellar mirages, satellites, missiles, reflections, searchlights, birds, kites, false radar indications, fireworks, flares, and some confirmed hoaxes. Secretary of the Air Force Robert C. Siemens Jr. announced Project Blue Book's termination on December 17th, 1969. AARO partnered with the U.S. National Archives to examine the records from the United States Air Force Project Blue Book, which spanned from 1947 to 1969. This research presented a significant challenge because the volume of the documentation amounted to 7,252 files, holding a total of 65,778 digital records. The vast majority of these files are populated with the United States Air Force documentation. Some cases contain media clippings and images, but these instances are rare. Results: Project Blue Book determined that no UFO report investigated and evaluated by the United States Air Force demonstrated any indication of a threat to national security. There was no evidence submitted to or discovered by the United States Air Force that sightings represented technological developments or principles beyond the range of then present day scientific knowledge. The There was no evidence indicating that the sightings categorized as unidentified are, quote, extraterrestrial vehicles. Of the 12,618 sightings in Project Blue Book's holdings, 701 were categorized as unidentified and never solved. Again, I'm just going to comment on the fact here really quick. The word extraterrestrial is used over and over again. I'm wondering, will NHI or non human intelligence ever be used in volume 2 when that comes out later this year? I don't know. But for the moment, I find that a little suspect that we're only using the terms extraterrestrial. Okay. CIA evaluation of UFOs, 1964. Background. Following high-level White House discussions on what to do if alien intelligence was discovered or there was a new outbreak of UFO sightings, DCI John McCone tasked the CIA to update its evaluation of UFOs. The CIA's scientific division officially acquired UFO sighting case information from the director of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, NICAP, a private organization founded in 1956. Results. Donald F. Chamberlain, assistant director of OSI, subsequently informed McCone that little had changed since the early 1950s. There was still no evidence that UFOs were a threat to the security of the United States or that they were of, quote, foreign origin. O'Brien Committee, 1964. Background. Dr. Brian O'Brien, a member of the United States Air Force Scientific Advisory Board, chaired the United States Air Force ad hoc review of Project Blue Book. The committee included Carl Sagan, a prominent astronomer from Cornell University. Results. The committee's report stated that UFOs did not threaten U.S. national security and that it could find no UFO case which represented technological or scientific advances outside of a terrestrial framework. The committee's primary recommendation was that this topic merited intensive academic research and that a top university should lead the study. The Condon Report, 1968. Background. Dr. Edward U. Condon, a physicist and former director of the National Bureau of Standards, was the scientific director of an 18-month study on flying saucers funded under a $325,000 United States Air Force contract to the University of Colorado. This panel took a narrow and somewhat unique view of UFO investigatory efforts, primarily focusing on whether or not UFO phenomena merited formal scientific research in terms of academic or USG-sponsored research and in secondary schools. The panel said their remit did not include the study of UFO phenomena as a potential risk to U.S. national security interests. Among other duties, it closely examined 59 specific case studies. Results. The panel's report stated that, quote, our general conclusion is that nothing has come from the study of UFOs in the past 21 years that has added to scientific knowledge. Careful consideration of the record as it is available to us leads us to conclude that further extensive study of UFOs probably cannot be justified in the expectation that science will be advanced thereby, end quote. The panel cautioned against support for scientific papers on this topic and recommended that teachers should not give credit to students for reading UFO literature and materials. The panel also investigated and studied a small number of these cases of alleged physical evidence of UFO visitations, from imprints on the ground and residue allegedly left behind from UFO landings, such as white powder and ethereal strands dubbed, quote, angel hair, to metallic debris. The panel found ordinary explanations for each of these cases. Some of these cases originated in Brazil, Norway, and Washington, D.C. The panel investigated a claim by radio broadcaster Frank Edwards in a 1966 book that a piece of a UFO was recovered near Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1952 during the spike in UFO sightings over the U.S. Capitol in July and August. He claimed that a USN jet fired on a 2-foot diameter glowing disc and dislodged a 1-pound fragment that was recovered by a ground team. Project Blue Book was not aware of this claim. United States Air Force and USN found no incident report of weapons engagement with a UFO that summer. No USN aircraft were present, and the retired officer, who was the original source of the claim, had retired before the summer of 1952 when the event allegedly occurred. Edwards also made the claim in 1966 that USG had loaned the Canadian government fragments of a UFO it had allegedly recovered. It is not clear if this claim was linked to the alleged Washington, D.C. incident. He also claimed that Dr. Vannevar Bush, a prominent inventor, defense industry scientist, and founder of the National Science Foundation, led the effort to study the fragment. The Condon panel determined that these claims most likely were false. National Academy of Sciences assessment of the Condon report, late 1968. Background. After the Condon report was criticized by some scientists, including Project Blue Book's Dr. Hynek, a panel of the National Academy of Sciences, NAS, was tasked in late 1968 to examine the rigor, methodology, and conclusions of the Condon report. The panel did not conduct its own investigation into the validity of UFO reports. Results. The NAS review concluded that we are unanimous in the opinion that has been a very credible effort to apply techniques of science to the solution of the UFO problem. Carter administration tasking to National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, 1977. Background. Dr. Frank Press, science advisor to President Jimmy Carter, sent a letter to Dr. Robert Frosch, NASA administrator, on July 21, 1977, suggesting that a panel be formed by NASA to see if there had been any new significant findings on UFOs since the Condon report. Results. 5 months later, NASA responded by stating that it was not warranted to, quote, establish a research activity in this area or to convene a symposium on the subject. Roswell Investigations Inquiries, 92 to 2001. President Clinton and Chief of Staff Podesta inquire about Roswell, 9201. The Roswell Report, Fact versus Fiction in the New Mexico Desert, 1995. The GAO Roswell Report, 1995. The Roswell Report, Case Closed, 1997. Background. According to press reports, President Clinton tasked former National Security Advisor Sandy Berger to determine if the USG held aliens or alien technology. President Clinton said, quote, as far as I know, an alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. If the USAF did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it. And I want to know, end quote. Okay, in 1993, Congressman Stephen H. Schiff, R., New Mexico, made inquiries about the Roswell incident in DOD. The Roswell incident refers to the July 1994 recovery of metallic and rubber debris from a crashed military balloon near Roswell Army Airfield personnel that sparked conspiracy theories and claims that the debris was from an alien spaceship and part of a USG cover-up. He asked the General Accounting Office, GAO, subsequently renamed the Government Accountability Office, to determine the requirements for reporting air accidents, such as the crash near Roswell, and to identify any government records concerning the Roswell crash. The United States Air Force conducted a systematic search of numerous archives and record centers in support of GAO's audit of Roswell as part of this review. The United States Air Force also interviewed numerous people who may have had knowledge of the events. Secretary of the Air Force Sheila E. Widnall released them from any security obligations that they have restricted the sharing of information, that may have restricted the sharing of information. The United States Air Force then published the Roswell Report in 1995, which included, quote, the report of the U.S. Air Force research regarding the Roswell incident by Colonel Richard L. Weaver, and the synopsis of ballroom research findings by First Lieutenant James McAndrew. Results. The report stated that the United States Air Force's research did not locate or develop any information that indicated the Roswell incident was a UFO event, nor was there United States government. Rather, the materials recovered near Roswell were consistent with a balloon of the type used in the then classified Project Mogul. No records showed any evidence that the USG recovered aliens or extraterrestrial material. The United States Air Force subsequently published a report in 1997, the Roswell Report, Case Closed, with additional materials and analysis which supported its conclusion that the debris recovered near Roswell was from the United States Army Air Force's balloon-borne program. The alleged alien bodies reported by some in the New Mexico desert were test dummies that were carried aloft by U.S. Army Air Force high altitude balloons for scientific research. Reports of military units that allegedly recovered a flying saucer and its crew were descriptions of Air Force personnel engaged in the dummy recovery operations. Claims of alien bodies at the Roswell Army Air Force Hospital were most likely the result of the conflation of two separate incidents: a 1956 KC 97 aircraft incident in which 11 Air Force members lost their lives, and a 1959 manned balloon mishap in which two Air Force pilots were injured. The GAO's 1995 report on the results of its investigation found that the U.S. Army Air Force regulations in 1947 required that air accident reports be maintained permanently. 4 air accidents were reported by the Army Air Force in New Mexico during July 1947. All involved military aircraft and occurred after July 8th, 1947, the date the RAAF Public Information Office first reported the crash and recovery of a flying disc near Roswell. The military reported no air accidents in New Mexico that month. USAF officials reported to GAO that there was no requirement to prepare a report on the crash of a balloon in 1947. There's a lot to unpack there, and I have some comments on that I'll comment on later. I think what I'll do is I'm going to read a little bit more. Then I'm going to split this into two separate recordings, and I'll do part 2 of this report tomorrow night, and then I'll follow it up with the commentary. But I'll go a little bit longer here. Okay. So Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application, OSAP 2009 to 2012, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, background at the direction of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, Democrat in Mexico. The Defense Appropriations Acts of fiscal years 2008 and 2010 appropriated $22 million for the DIA to assess long-term and over-the-horizon foreign advanced aerospace threats to the United States, in coordination with the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, DIA, established OSTAP in 2009, which was also known as ATIP. The contract for this DIA managed program was awarded to a private sector organization. The names OSAP and ATIP have been used interchangeably for the name of this program, including on official documentation. Unlike OSAP, ATIP was never an official DoD program. However, after OSAP was canceled, the ATIP moniker was used by some individuals associated with an informal, unofficial UAP community of interest within DoD that researched UAP sightings from military observers as part of their ancillary job duties. This effort was not a recognized official program and had no dedicated personnel or budget. The primary purpose of OSAP ATIP was to investigate potential next generation aerospace technologies in 12 specific areas, such as advanced lift, propulsion, the use of unconventional materials and controls, and signature reduction. Although investigating UFO UAP was not specifically outlined in the contract's statement of work, the selected private sector organization conducted UFO research with the support of the DIA program manager. This research included reviewing new cases and much older Project Blue cases, operating debriefing and investigatory teams, and proposals to set up laboratories to examine any recovered UFO materials. OSAP ATIP also investigated an alleged hotspot of UAP and paranormal activity at a property in Utah, which at that time was owned by the head of the private sector organization, including examining reports of, quote, shadow figures and, quote, creatures, and exploring, quote, remote viewing and, quote, human consciousness anomalies. The organization also planned to hire psychics to study interdimensional phenomena, quote, interdimensional phenomena, believed to frequently appear at that location. DIA did not seek nor specifically authorize this work through a DIA employee set up and managed the contract with the private sector organization. On 24 June 2009, Senator Reid sent a letter to then Deputy Secretary of Defense William Lynn III requesting that OSAP ATIP be made a DoD Special Access Program. Deputy Secretary Lynn declined to do so based on the recommendation of then Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence James R. Clapper Jr. that such a designation was not justified. Just prior to DoD's cancellation of the program, the private sector organization proposed a new line of effort to host a series of, quote, intellectual debates at academic institutes to influence the public debate, which included hiring supportive reporters and celebrity moderators. The goal of this proposed public relations campaign was to assume that, quote, ET visitations are true, and that the moderators would steer debate away from the, quote, dead-end discussions and the, quote, morass about discussing evidence. A stated goal of this proposal was to increase public interest in government disclosure around the ET topic and explore the consequences of disclosure on the public. Results. The OSAP ATIP contract with the private sector organization produced exploratory papers addressing the 12 scientific areas tasked in the contract statement of work. These scientific papers were never thoroughly peer-reviewed. AARO has yet to uncover any other substantive UAP casework conducted by OSAP ATIP. Instead, OSAP ATIP reviewed a large number of Project Blue Book and private cases and conducted interviews of UAP observers and conducted unrelated work on alleged paranormal activities at the private sector organization's property in Utah. OSAP ATIP was terminated in 2012 upon the completion of its deliverables due to DIA and DoD concerns about the project. After OSAP ATIP was terminated, its supporters unsuccessfully attempted to convince DHS to support a new version of this effort dubbed Kona Blue. Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task, UAPTF, August 2020 to November 2021. Background. Deputy Secretary of Defense David L. Norquist approved the establishment of the UAPTF in August 2020 under the cognizance of the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Secretary USD and INS. The Department of the Navy was asked to lead the task force. It was established to improve understanding of and gain insight into the nature and origins of UAP. The task force mission was to detect, analyze, and catalog UAP that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. Results. The UAPTF helped standardize, destigmatize, and increase the volume of UAP reporting. Its work also helped calibrate sensors to improve the quality of data collected. Its methods and processes directly led to the identification of People's Republic of China's PRC high-altitude balloons that traversed over the continental United States. We should all thank UFOs. Preliminary assessment. Unidentified aerial phenomena, June 2021. Background. Senate Report 116233, accompanying the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021, directed the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, to submit an intelligence assessment of the threat posed by UAP to report on the progress the UAPTF had made in understanding this threat. Results. The preliminary assessment concluded that 1. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on UAP hampers the ability to draw firm conclusions about their nature or intent. 2. In a limited number of incidents, UAP reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, although those observations could be the result of sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misinterpretation and require additional rigorous analysis. 3. There are probably multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations based on the range of appearances and behaviors described in the available reporting. 4. UAP may pose airspace safety issues and a challenge to U.S. national security. And 5, consistent consolidation of reports from across the USG, standardized reporting, increased collection and analysis, and a streamlined process for screening all such reports against a broad range of relevant governmental data will allow for a more sophisticated analysis of UAP. Okay, I'm going to pause it here and then I'll pick this up again. I'll pick this up again tomorrow night. There's so much to unpack. So I'll, after tomorrow night's part 2 reading, I'll offer you my commentary. Obviously, there are some major flaws. There's some disinformation, mostly misinformation. There's clearly an effort here to kind of persuade us into a certain point of view on the matter of UAPs, which is there's nothing to see here, folks. So we'll continue this conversation. Thanks so much for hanging out and listening, everyone. I see that you're still in chat. That's so awesome that you guys are here. I was like, I don't think anybody's going to hang out and listen to me read for an hour. All right. So, hey, Dave, what's up, man? Well, look, there's, I understand not wanting to trust people like, Dave, but it's, you have to keep an open mind from all perspectives. And I think that, he's about as legit as it gets. So I'm not really sure where you're coming from in that standpoint. Now, if you mean trusted, meaning he misinterpreted something, but the Tic Tac is really the 2004 Nimitz is an amazing UFO event. No matter how hard the likes of Mick West to argue against it, you can't deny that you had more than one visual contact of the object, and then you also had sensor. Oh, you believe him? Okay, cool. We have multiple sensors that picked it up as well, and I'm going to talk about that multi-sensor analysis tomorrow, because that's one of the things in this report they seem to be so heavy and hard on. And one has to wonder, did you not actually do any research? Because there are reports out there. They exist. So I'll touch on all those things too. Hey, Ron. Oh, man, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hey, Alien Love. Yeah, so all right, I'm going to hang my hat up here, guys. I've got an early morning tomorrow. Dave, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate the chat. And hopefully you'll pop in tomorrow night as well. I'm not sure what time, pending my schedule, but we'll finish this report and then we'll have fun with some of the commentary. So until next time, peace and love, y'all, and I will see you on the flip side.